Hello everybody, and welcome to the first edition of Joshua's Coding Hub. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Joshua Dominique, and I started programming when I was 9 years old. Currently, I am 10, and I've been programming Python for over a year. I feel really enthusiastic about this subject, and I want everybody who has access to a computer to have access to Python. This video is all about how to get Python on your computer, how to install it, and the basics of it, what Python is, what programming is, and some basic functions. So without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, let's get started. What is programming? What is a programming language? Which is the best programming language? And what programming language are we going to be using today? Well, I'm talking to you in English right now, a language. The way we talk to the computer is a language. That language is called programming. When you press a button on the computer, normally you don't think much about it, but behind that button are lines of code. That is the programming behind whatever you want the computer to do. Programming can be used in so many different ways and can be written in different ways to accomplish the same thing. I'm talking to you currently in English, right? But there's so many other languages I could talk to you in. Dutch, Finnish, Spanish, French. The list goes on and on. This is the same thing for programming. There's so many ways that you can write the same thing in different languages. And the languages that you use behind your computer, some are complicated, some are less complicated. These are the programming languages. But there has been huge debates on which is the best programming language. But after lots of research, we have come down to the two most simplest and easiest to understand programming languages, Java and Python. Okay, I'm going to be stating which programming language is better, Java or Python. First, let me state the facts. For coding, you need to write less lines of code for Python than you need to do for Java, meaning you can accomplish things quicker in Python than you can with Java. Second of all, Python is more easier to understand. Python functions are more like the functions and words that we use when we speak. However, Java's functions are a bit more complicated using curly brackets and semicolons. The speed. Java, however, has the better speed and is quicker than Python. So it's really hard to decide which one's a better programming language. I'll do the three reasons. Python won two of them. So I'm saying that Python is the best programming language. Let me demonstrate why Python is better than Java. Okay, so let me open a blank file. You do not have to do this. I'm just doing it to help you understand. Okay, this is how you get an output as hello in Java. Java. This is how you get it in Python. Yeah. I think we can all see the difference between Java's lines of code and Python's. Python's are more shorter and more easier to understand. However, Java's are more longer and harder to understand, backing up my reasons. This is why we choose Python as the programming language for many beginners. Now, let's get started with our first code in Python. Now that we know why Python is the best programming language for beginners, let's get started with installing Python. Okay, so you go to your web browser and type in python.org. You should come up with this website. This website is the original website of Python. Now, we want to download Python. Go to downloads and download this version. Now, before we go any further, I just want to explain to you why this is 3.11.1. This is because Python has so many versions. It started with the version Python 2.0, but has kept on updating since. This is the latest and best version of Python yet. There are still more updates coming. I'm not going to actually demonstrate how to download it, as I do already have Python. So you go ahead and download it. Pause this video, and after you downloaded it, come back. Okay. So you've downloaded Python. Now, it's time for you to start your first code. Before we do that, let's go to File. And wherever you want to keep a folder, which will be containing all of your Python files from now on. I'm going to keep it in my desktop. It depends where you want to keep it. Name this folder Joshua Python. Then save new text document. And say first PRG. PRG stands for program. .py. Make sure you do .py. I'll explain later. Okay. So pause at this question. File name extension. Many of you looking at this will be like, what is this? You'll be bewildered at this question, not understanding what file name extension is. Well, let me explain. .py is the file name extension for Python. In simpler words, .py is what identifies a file as a Python file. Before, this file was a text file, a text document, meaning a notepad file, which is very similar to Word. But we're changing this file from Notepad to a Python file. Take it as this. You're writing in the Microsoft Word, but you're going to change that Microsoft Word file to an Excel file. You will change the Microsoft Word file extension to the Microsoft Excel extension. That won't work because of some other complicated program. But in simpler words, this is what identifies the file as what type of file it is. .py is what identifies this file as a Python file. And if this says, are you sure you want to change it? This basically means, are you sure you want to change this file to a Python file? Which we do. So click on yes. Then open with Notepad. Do not open with Python, open with Notepad. If you right click on it, these options should come up. Click open with Notepad. Okay, here we are. Notepad is what we will be using for the first few classes. It's not exactly for Python, but it can be used for Python. There are other better platforms that we can study Python in. Those platforms are called IDE platforms. They help us a lot while we're coding Python with more spaces, and they change colors for different types of statements and functions. In Notepad, it doesn't do all of that. It's perfect for beginners so that we can get used to the real core of Python, how we really set out Python. Because if we went to the IDE platform first, we will get all fancy and comfortable and familiar with the program doing everything for us. But if we start with the basics, then we will have to learn how to do that, all of the fancy stuff the IDE platforms do first by ourselves. Then, when we're more advanced, we can move over to the IDE platforms because we already know the stuff. We will go to IDE platforms in the next few classes, so stay tuned if you want to transfer. Okay, follow me. Do whatever I'm doing. Hello world. This is the very, very famous piece of code that is normally used for the beginners of Python. Hello world. Now, before I go any further, I would just like to explain this to you. Print is a function in Python. I demonstrated it earlier in the class. Basically, anything that's inside these parentheses is what gets printed. In this case, hello world is going to get printed. But then you might ask, Joshua, what are the double quotations for? The double quotations is what identifies this as a string. A string is basically a type of data type that we use in Python. Hello world is inside the string. I will talk about more about strings and other data types in the next class, but just understand it for now. Do you see this little asterisk next to our file? Yeah. That means that this file is unsaved. So you click File and Save to save this file, and the asterisk will go away. Okay, how to run the file. Go to your search bar and type in command prompt. That should come up. Okay, command prompt. Now, go back to this tab where your program is. Right click on this, the top, the URL address. Let's say copy this URL address as text. Copy address as text. You come back to the command prompt, cd, type cd, and paste that here, and press enter. Command prompt. This is what we will be using to execute our first few codes for the first few days. So, I typed in cd to get command prompt's attention. After cd, I typed in the URL address, which identifies this file, this folder more like. So, it goes and transfers this information to this, meaning now it's ready for any files in this folder to be run. So we have just the thing. Copy me. Wait for it. There it is. Python is basically what identifies it as a Python file, along with a .py. And first program.py is basically the file name. Hello world. That's our output. Now, remember when it was taking a bit of a long time to load? Yes. That was why I was saying JavaScript was faster than Python, but Python is still more simpler. At the end of the day, simpler is better than faster. Okay. Now let's experiment with our code. What happens if we don't put double quotations? Remember to save your file. Invalid syntax. Perhaps you forgot a comma. Okay. What Python interpreter is doing here is taking hello world, this whole thing, as a variable. Variables are something I will be explaining in next class. But basically, variables, you need to give variables a value. But hello world, we don't want hello world to be a variable, do we? No. We want it to be a string. And it's in double quotation marks to identify hello world as a string. So we need those double quotation marks. I will talk more about variables in the next class. There. What if we don't put up parentheses? What will happen then? Here they know. Command prompt identify the Python interpreter more like identifies the print function and knows that it has to have brackets and parentheses. And as Python interpreter knows this, they are asking, did you mean print? This is something called a syntax error. I will talk more about the types of errors in my next class. Okay, so do this correctly and save your file. Okay, so I'm going to give you an assignment. The assignment is for you to redo everything I've done in today's class and run the file and command prompt. If you have any queries or comments or questions, please place them in the comments below. Or if you're really struggling and you want to get in touch with me personally, I have attached my Gmail address to my profile picture. But anyway, here's my Gmail address, joshua.dominic100@gmail.com. Okay. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you. See you in the next tutorial. Bye.